Can't hear me.
Nope.
What's up, Wastelanders? This is Street Dog Bow Wow, and
Mr.
you're
Pop-
listening to GNR. That's Galaxy News Radio, in case you forgot. And here's me with the news. For those of you not in the know, to the northwest of Megaton is this Vault 101. Now, believe it or not, this one's still got people living in it. And if
A quick inventory check of the courier's backpack revealed nothing more than an empty flask along with a flashlight and an old 50s-style tin lunchbox. At the very bottom of the bag lied a once neatly folded grey jumpsuit. A long time period of little attention had left it torn and stained. If it wasn't for its sentimental value that it had, he would have left it to rot in the dirt long ago. He raised a hand above his brow. He observed the wastes, but could see no signs of life. He turned to his right and saw the shine off the river. He attempted to swallow, but his throat was dry and scratchy, which made it difficult to perform the task. Hours of walking had tired him down. A small taste, he thought to himself. It couldn't be any more irradiated than the crap he last drank back in Megaton that was served by a man who was practically a living conduct of radiation. He paused for a moment. He looked straight, trying to figure out what his next step would be. He looked ahead of where he needed to go. He was still miles from Paradise Falls, which is where he planned to stock up on supplies and, with a bit of luck, find a place to rest for the night. He observed the metal device on his wrist, and with a few clicks he checked his location. He was better off finding a place to cross the river and head east for the most direct route. It was by far the most dangerous, though weighing the odds of dehydration or dying in a hail of gunfire, he'd take the quicker option. He lifted off his bulletproof vest and dismantled his leather armour. As each strap was loosened, he felt himself slowly getting lighter as each part fell to the floor. Beneath, he wore a simple white t-shirt with brown stains that covered several parts. The stains were a familiar sight to anyone who had spent their fair share of time in the open wastes. It was always a good feeling knowing that the once red stain was not his. The loss of weight from lack of armour created a strange feeling that made the courier feel like he was about to lift from the ground and float away. He wanted to savour the moment, but instead he instantly placed the vest back over his t-shirt and continued to make his way on his new route, now being considerably lighter on his feet. Within the hour he could make out a small settlement within the distance. As he observed, he noticed that the walls that surrounded it were assembled in a similar manner to that of Megaton. Such was the way of life in the wasteland. He knew for sure that this was the infamous Paradise Falls that he had heard so much about. He had stayed cleared from it up until now, and for good reason. If he wasn't desperate for the supplies he didn't get back in Megaton, he would have carried on walking, for the inside of the settlement contained a business which was best to ignore and forget for someone like him. Nevertheless, he continued. He wasn't sure what kind of people he'd meet in there, but it was important for him to appear stronger than he actually was. If anyone picked up on him being weak, then it could mean trouble, and in their line of business, trouble was not something he was interested in. A quick in and out, he said to himself. No more than an hour unless he had a place to stay for the night. Maybe he'd just grab the supplies he needed and leave anyway, or maybe he'd simply pass it and try his luck at scavenging in a nearby gas station or something. It wasn't a bad idea. He tossed the idea around in his head for a few moments, but was interrupted by a low, demanding voice from what seemed to be out of nowhere.
Hold it right there. Nobody's allowed into Paradise Falls except on slaver business. And I get to decide what qualifies as slaver business.
The voice almost caught him off guard. He hadn't realised that he'd reached the front gate. I just came here to do some trading. Have you got any supplies you'd be willing to trade? Any food or ammo?
Go on, piss off already. Or do you want to get shot?
Though the courier had an itch on his trigger finger, he knew that the guard had the same feeling, and from where he was stood, he didn't stand a chance. While dehydrated and on an empty stomach, the odds weighed heavily against him. He turned to walk away, desperately thinking of what to do to get in. An idea suddenly hit him. He knew exactly what he could do. I'm sure your boss would be interested in this Pip-Boy I have. Maybe he'd want to trade it for a night's rest. Maybe a drink? he called as he waved the device on his wrist to the guard. The guard stared, his brow deepened in aggression, but gave a slight grunt before nodding his head in the direction of the entrance. As the courier walked past, he felt an aggressive hand grip hard on his shoulder.
Friendly warning. Don't act like a jackass. You won't get a second chance.
The tone suddenly brought the courier back to the reality of what he was currently doing. There was a very real chance that once he entered, he may not come out alive, or worse. Nevertheless, he did enter with the feeling of his heart beat hard against his chest. He entered through the gates that had been built in a similar way to the one he saw back in Megaton. It didn't take long before he could hear the cries of the helpless victims within the settlement. People caged up like animals sat in the dirt for which was their home. The courier noticed that each one wore a collar around their neck. As he walked past some of the fences, he could hear a slight beeping sound emitting from them as the slaves reached out begging for his help. He passed them without acknowledgement, but if he did, he would appear weak in front of the monsters that had them imprisoned. So long as they knew he was there on business, then maybe he wouldn't be bothered. Without turning his head, he was observing his surroundings. He checked for lookouts and possible troublemakers. He avoided anyone that seemed to look at him as he progressed through the town of suffering. Trying so hard to blend in, he had almost forgot why he was there in the first place. He only remembered due to the dry scratch in the back of his throat. Just as he turned to look for any trader, a voice spoke out past the cries and moans.
You're not from around here, are you?
The voice itself seemed to stand out better than the others, though this was only because of the background sound, which sounded more like nails down a chalkboard. The courier turned suddenly to find the source of the voice. He noticed a young woman no older than he was looking at him through a fenced gate. She was casually leaning against the fence on her right shoulder, and she looked remarkably clean and delicate for a slave. Her brown hair was tied behind with what he assumed to be a shoelace, and her clothes seemed to be in relatively good condition for someone within the settlement. That's when the courier noticed something even more obvious about her, something that set her apart from the other slaves. She didn't have a collar. The collars themselves were designed to explode, taking the user's head with it if it detonated. It was only through spending enough time in the wastelands that anyone would have the unfortunate sight at one point or another. And how exactly would you know where I'm from? The courier asked, almost insulted by the comment.
I know you're not from around here, that's for sure. See the look on your hands and face? Beard shaved recently, clean hands? Almost look like you've walked right out of one of them vaults. Either that or towards the penny tower. But judging by that fancy watch on your wrist, I'd go with my first thought.
The courier rubbed his chin and felt the rough hair from where his beard was growing again after a couple of days without shaving. And what about you? You're not a slave. Bruises on your knuckles, not thin enough to be starving. A raider, perhaps? She flinched at the word as if it poked a nerve, though she attempted to hide this.
If that's what you think, it doesn't matter anyway. We're both stuck here now.
No, I can come and go as I please, the courier stated, almost bragging. The prisoner gave a soft laugh at the statement.
You're going to die in here. At least if you keep up with the tough guy attitude. You're lucky no one spoke to you on your way in. The gate closes in an hour, so I suggest you leave now.
What about you?
I can get out of here anytime I want. I'm just waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, I'm sure the guards won't mind if you slip past them.
They won't, because they won't even see me.
You got yourself a stealth boy? Because unless you do, then good luck, the courier said, making out that he was about to leave, knowing full well that she was about to stop him.
If you get me one, I'll repay you,
she said in an almost pleading voice, sounding slightly more nervous than she had done before. The courier turned enlightened, but still maintained a look of being serious. Someone who pissed off slavers so bad that they locked her up is not someone I want to bargain with. What could you possibly have to repay me with anyway?
Guys like you are easy. You only seem to want one thing,
she said, tossing ideas through her head. I need supplies. Ammo, food, caps. Can you offer me any of those? The girl looked shocked all of a sudden. She didn't expect someone like him to turn down her offer so easily.
Food? Yeah. Ammo? A little. Caps? Not really. There's a super duper mart up north. I was there with my group and I hid my share of my food in a safe. A week's worth.
In a safe? The courier asked, trying to catch her in a lie.
It's a big safe. It's yours if you get me one.
She boasted, lifting up her foot and pulling a key that was hidden under the laces of her shoe. Okay, I'll bite. Now where do I get a stealth boy?
Funny you ask. A slave had one confiscated from them a couple days ago. Chances are it's for sale. Since you said you don't have any caps, you might have to barter for it. Between you and me, I don't think any of these guys know what a stealth boy is. Meaning it would have likely ended up with the clinic.
So I should speak to the clinic then. Sounds easy enough, I'll get it done. Though you better hold up your end of the bargain, the courier said, reaching out his hand through the fence. She shook his hand, but with a grip much more firm than he had anticipated.
What's your name?
Name's Jack. You?
I'm Sarah.